Yeah.
Okay, and we're live.
Hello.
Hey guys.
Hello.
All right. Okay.
Getting settled here. Friday morning, right? Or evening for you guys.
Yep. Yep. Um, let's try to have things not being too stiff because whenever I know that it's live, it's like gonna be robotic and all, but we don't have to do that.
Yep.
Okay. Well, welcome to the third episode of the Artefact Podcast, and this week we have Tyler Edlin with us today. It's awesome to finally have you live here with us. We have had the discussions before, and it's awesome to talk to you. We know for a fact that like within the first hour of talking to you, like it's gonna be a great episode. So very excited to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. This is going to be fun,
Alrighty.
right? We're going to be talking art, business, and life, right?
Yeah.
That's how I advertise this.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's straight up the way it is, right? Like I mean, like one
Hmm.
and one of the thing that I like to emphasize with everyone, from the get go is that you are a man of a family, and you
Hmm.
are working in concept art. We all know how hectic the work can be, and then you have other responsibilities. You have your own business, and it's insane how you can structure all that together. So it's gonna be awesome exploring that.
Yeah, I would be giving all kinds of insights and real talks, right? This is not scripted. It's going to be unfiltered in a sense as well. So
Yeah.
feel free, guys. You can kind of steer the conversation and ask questions, and I'm an open book.
Alrighty. Okay. So, for anyone here who doesn't know you, I bet most of us know who you are. But for anyone who's new to the podcast, perhaps you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm Tyler. I've been working, I guess, in some sort of professional capacity in the creative field since about 2010. So I think in my YouTube videos, I always say just like 12 years, but in reality, it's probably closer to 14. I've gotten the habit of saying 12 years so much, I keep forgetting to change the number. But I think realistically, it's probably closer to 14 or 15. But yeah,
Wow.
and it started off with just like the quick, really small deviant art commissions. That's all there was back then. But even before CG Hub, probably about the time of conceptart.org. But I don't think anyone was getting like, at least I wasn't, because I wasn't good enough. I wasn't getting clients through
Hmm.
conceptart.org, but the forums were great to grow, right? It was a great community.
For sure.
But I'd get the occasional commission through the notes or the requests on DeviantArt, and I just post there. That was the only platform I really knew of. And so I did that in my early days, and just started doing, like, I guess what like a lot of people do would be like casual game art, doing like hidden picture object type games, doing like puzzle games, doing social game art. I did that for years, and that was great until the work stopped coming because I got laid off. And it was at that point I had a bunch of time on my hand, and I was, you know what, let's try the whole YouTube thing. And that was, literally the best decision I ever did,
And when was
because it helped
this?
me be, I would think 2012, I think, is
Hmm.
like when I started to dabble in the YouTube.
Oh, you are very
And those
early.
first,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yep.
you're a YouTube OG before it was trendy.
Yep.
And I'm only at, like 150 now, which is, I'm not to like disregard that, but like it's been like I've been doing it forever. And like everything in my life and career, it has been very slow, progression on everything, because I've really been largely untrained in any of this, and I've never had a plan, and I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go. Instead of like the graceful snowball that's just rolling into like this nice ball down a hill, I'm like the snowball that's like oddly shaped and's got like a twig and an acorn, and I'm just kind of tumbling my way down the hill, but my momentum doesn't stop. It's not like the easiest path I've had, I don't think, and it's not the smoothest, but I'm not stopping, and at least I have that, because like, you know what, if you show up, you put the time in, and you be objective enough with yourself to understand, okay, like what works, what does not work. You just basically do the best I can. But yeah, I've been there a long time, and it's been fun. I see, it's just it's humbling, when I see content creators too that show up on the platform, artists specifically that show up nowadays, and then like they just start like a year or two ago, and just like, like, how do you get 700K so fast? Like, what am I doing wrong? Stuff like that. And it's cool. It's cool to see, and it's great to see the community thriving in that regard.
Yeah, it's also that YouTube. I mean, you have so many niches in YouTube. How would you define your niche? And also another question: what got you to start YouTube in some way? What motivated
Well,
you
it
to
was the
start that?
fact, right, that I had a bunch of time on my hand, and I liked showing process. Even like
Mhm.
on DeviantArt, I would post like a GIF, of the process of an image, and I would occasionally show a step by step. And because like I was still largely learning, self-learning, a lot of that on my own. So I always deeply admired when another artist or creator out there was, I guess, like kind enough to show that process so we could deconstruct it and learn how they did it. I spent a lot of time looking at, like a Craig's Mullins piece, or like, anyone, or even like some of like Fang Zhu stuff before he like had a lot of video content, and like how did they do that? Like, and
Right.
it's without seeing that process, it just kind of has you going in circles. So it's like, you know what? If I've got as far as I did, I just want to be an open book and share as much as I could. I had no plans ever to kind of formally teach. I just wanted to share. That's kind of the thought or the train of thought that started everything.
So you are saying that YouTube then initiated you wanted to teach or going to teach. Has there been a
Yeah.
demand from YouTube that
Yeah,
put
it
you to teach
happened
something like this?
organically. Sorry, I
Wow.
interrupted. Yeah, it
No, no
happened
problem.
organically. It's like it, I think it was like 2015 or 14, I just get comments on videos. And I think at that time I did have some art lessons that I did, and an occasional time lapse, but people just showed up and they wanted me to teach them. And I was like, when people are like essentially knocking on your doors and I didn't really have to even advertise for it, it's like, okay, like, you know, the business side of me clicked on, like, all right, like let's start this next phase of
Yeah.
my journey. And of course, any kind of supplemental income as an artist is a good thing, because I learned
Yeah.
just 2 years into the field, you could be full time working and the next day not, like, without any kind of warning or preparation.
Yeah.
So right, it's some like hard and fast lessons to learn early on, because I know, and I'm sure this will probably come up later, right? Like 2024 has been rough for this field. Been a lot of layoffs, but none of that's really new. None of that's new at all. There is always those cycles and those periods in this particular field. And I think the best, thing we could ever do as a creator is, of course, diversify, within reason, start multiple businesses and income streams and work on yourselves. Cause like it's just like never a sure thing. And I just never saw it as that. So I'm lucky I kind of fell into like those other categories accidentally, because it certainly helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think accidentally or not, it's really cool to know that, like during, let's say, during layoff, like during your downtime, you decide to take on something that you have never taken on before. And that clicked with you, and that transformed the way you think about the art business and allowed you to have other streams
Mhm.
of income, other ideas of business coming in to you and for you, right? Like I think I mentioned this before, but I can only hope that people try to think about this layoff times are like the investors going back to the drawing board. They're trying to think up of new things, new ways to do their business. So they don't need too much people or too many people in their studio, in their company. They're trying to rework the framework of everything and expand upon that. And so perhaps people can take the downtime as the opportunity to expand, right? Rather than just sitting there or being sad all the time. Of course, the emotion is respected, but at the same time, we should all try to figure out certain ways to help ourselves out, right?
Yeah, that's kind of how I approach it, is that these things are so big, they're out of all of our control. all
Yeah.
these factors, these components, right? Like it, and there's some artists because I'm online, I'm on Facebook. I see the troubles. I see when people are really frustrated. But like personally, I don't want to waste an ounce of my energy and an ounce of my time having pity parties, doing like just being sad. Of course, I'm gonna feel sad, but I'm mentally training myself to like kick those kind of thoughts to the curb as fast as I can so I can reallocate that energy into business, into making content, into making art. Because it's just like it's out of my control and it's just there's no sense in kind of, taking a trip to negative town, as they say. So yeah, it's we can't help it and we have to continue just to be our best selves,
Yeah.
essentially.
It's that very stoic idea of like not in your control, not your problem in some way, and it's something we discussed last week with James about the pity parties happening online. Again, we can respect the emotion, we can perfectly understand that, but at the same
Yep.
time, it leads to that fallacy of thinking collectively in a very abstract way that makes it very utopianistic in some way. Instead of that, you need to think what is in your control, what can you do individually to make your situation better, rather than expecting the collective to maybe do something for you and expecting the collective to save you. And it's something that unfortunately a lot of people are learning the very hard way at the moment, I guess.
Yeah, I 100% agree because we can only do so much to create opportunities. Like we can't wait, right? As artists and creators, we can't just wait and wait and wait for opportunity to come. Maybe 20 years ago, it was a little different. Like we could just make really good art, put it out there, but even in a sense, we're still kind of creating those opportunities for ourselves. So the best way I think of it is like to be entirely as self-reliant as possible, and if their clients are knocking on the door, then that's just a bonus. Like when you can rely on, or not needing to rely necessarily on some big company or corporation that
Yeah.
is strictly business. Like and I learned that attending conventions and stuff with other creators. Like there's artists out there and there's loads of ways to measure art. But like, and if I'm gonna objectify art for just a minute here, like I could see artists, and I've seen artists at tabling at conventions, not the highest skill ever, but they were, like, really charismatic. They know how to sell and make their art, like, profitable, and they could easily do 6 figures just pushing their craft as independent creators, doing their
Yeah.
own thing with very little online presence. It's a different path, but there is a way nowadays in 2024, if you're creative, there is a way to kind of monetize that if you have like either some kind of commerce or business sense and a baseline craft that at least some people find appealing.
Yeah, it's crazy to see that. Again, we discussed it about exactly that the previous week. I'm pretty sure you see that with your students when you are. I don't know if you are sending
Mhm.
emails for your school and such, but overall, artists tend to be quite allergic to marketing techniques. They
Yeah.
tend to be slightly reluctant when you have like the classical way of doing marketing. They prefer to have proximity and to build trust with you, with anyone selling them something. And it's kind of paradoxical because that aversion to marketing, at the same time, marketing and being able to sell something, as you just say, it's one of the most crucial skills anyone can learn, especially artists at the moment, to
Yeah.
build other streams of income. And so many artists will benefit from learning that a bit more, I think.
Yeah, that's one of the first lessons I teach in my design classes is that like you can have like a really average, boring or typical idea, but if you know how to present it
Yeah.
extremely well, right? It upsells it, it uplifts it. Where conversely, you can have like an awesome idea, could look really complex and intricate, but if it looks like a mess, if you're poorly presenting it, you're shooting yourself in the foot, right? And it's you're not going to sell it. So there has to be like that balance and coming in with that mindset that you need to approach things in both ways.
I have personally I have this very idealistic view when it comes to money making and being a creative, is that if imagine maxing out the value that you can create for your client, for your audience, and money perhaps can be a byproduct of just that. But but before that can happen, you have to be able to present those values to people, right? So no matter how good your art is, no matter how good you say your art is, if you cannot sell it properly, then the money will never be a byproduct. The money will be a pain.
Mhm. That's the biggest thing going on right now, because as we kind of talked about in the past, there's no shortage of talent. Right now there's a lot of people very good at a lot of things. A lot of people are even undiscovered that are extremely good. So what it comes down to is like how you kind of get that out there. And it's not necessarily even like when you're propositioning with clients, but it's like focusing less on cost, and like you said, and more on value. What value can you provide to a potential employer? Because everybody can provide a base level talent and skill. So now it's like, you as an individual, you as a person, what kind of value can you bring to the table, and market yourself as a creator with that leverage and value, essentially.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so with this, I'd like to segue right into the business that you are running, which is Brush Sauce Studio. So,
Hmm.
can you tell everyone what Brush Sauce Studio is and how you have been running it as a business?
Absolutely. Well, it started off in I think 2011 just as a Tumblr. It was just a funny name I made to just drop art on Tumblr. Then that evolved right in like 2014 to like YouTube episodes. Just the title, Brush Sauce Theater, right, where I just get on and do some free learning. And then eventually, when I started mentoring a lot of people, it's like, okay, let's do the Brush Sauce Academy. So it's like, okay, we just switch the names out and it'll become an academy. And then when, hey, maybe 2020, 2021, we started to take on clients again. Okay, let's do the Brush Sauce Studio. So yeah, it kind of just, like I was describing earlier, just kind of snowballed around. But that's like the current state of it. And I think just in terms of like a business, I've realized it was like major shifting points in my life that uh, motivated me to reach for more. I do think that's a huge problem. It's very easy to get not necessarily stale or static, but like we can get comfortable and plateau as creators pretty easy. So like for example, the first time in my life that I was challenged is when I got married. And all of a sudden when you're married, you want to buy a home, you need some more money. So I was like, okay, I've luckily at the time I got in it with the Computer Graphics Master Academy, CGMA. That was a huge business thing, for me, and that led to other opportunities with just teaching in general. But that was huge. The first time was getting laid off with YouTube, and then my first kid, right? I had no time because I was the primary caretaker. I was watching my kid almost every day, and I could fit around teaching enough, right? There was enough flexibility there. But like by the time, like my daughter was two, she was of like preschool age. I was comfortable with bringing her to preschool. So like, okay, that's another big bill. So like, all right, like let's start a Patreon to help pay for childcare, so I could produce content and get something, in return. So that kind of rolled out, for a little while, and then I think, eventually with the second kid, my son, when he came around, and all of that was going well, but right, more bills are coming, right? Two kids in daycare, and home repairs are very expensive. It's like I need some more money. And then I started doing client work again, because for like 2017 to sometime in 2020, I said no to every client. And that was like a bad experience in my own way. And I had to learn to say no, because I said yes for longer than I should. I didn't have the time to nurture and foster those relationships and to do the work properly. And so I had to part ways with some clients somewhat reluctantly, but I mean, admittedly, I wasn't doing as good of a job because I was spreading myself too thin. So like, yeah, by the time my second kid around, I was like, you know what, I'm still spread thin. I can hire help, freelancers to manage and deal with the client work, and then I can just be the in between. I can I guess quasi art direct some of that, and to a degree. So that's where that new plateau for me kind of took hold. And I guess for the most part, that's where things are kind of more or less currently at. And now again with the layoffs, I've been laid off once in September, right from Epic, and I got a gig literally a week later. Just worked 6 months. That was 2 weeks ago. Got laid off from that one. I'm in 2 out of 4 interviews for another process. I got another one lined up. That could be a very I'm nervous about it. It could be a very lucrative gig, but not because I necessarily need it to survive. I do have enough income streams that I'll be fine without it. But now I want to provide work and stable work for my crew. So like now I'm feeling all kinds of pressure that I've never felt before to not necessarily mess up interviews, and so I can bring in work and then share that work, of course, with some of the guys. Um, but that's kind of where things are currently at.
Wow, that's been that's been very adventurous overall. Because
Hmm.
I think at this point in time, you must have developed like this resistance towards layoff in some sense, right? In terms of the mental preparedness
Yeah.
for that kind of event happening in an industry. Um,
Hmm.
and and so like when it comes to business, right? Most people will think about like, hey, how do you start it off, and how do you learn these things, right? So perhaps let's dive into the kind of stuff that you have looked into throughout your years being a businessman, and what kind of what kind of sources did you look into to prepare yourself?
I wasn't prepared. I jumped in like everything else. I don't know why I never thought of it before. And like we had talked previously about, I found I was just watching business related videos online and found a great channel called The Future, run by an awesome, brilliant designer entrepreneur, Chris Do. And I was just watching a video about scaling your business, and that led to one thing to another. There's a couple books, and I can get that list and recommend make some recommendations as well. But I just had to learn more of the business side. I'm still learning more of this business side every day. But essentially for me, like when I started working with like Epic Games, that was like full-time contract work, and I worked it for like a month or two, putting in the time of myself, like, and then like teaching at night and stuff. I started with them in the summer. So luckily for me, my wife's a school teacher. She was home and could take care of the kids. So I could put in the hours. But I was grinding it out, like any kind of full-time design job. But we were doing production art on Fortnite, and then I probably did what, like, a lot of people just don't think to do, because I was inspired by those design videos, from YouTube, and I was like, I my first real big kind of AAA opportunity, and I called on help, and I gave over like the course of like a couple months, I transitioned and trained former students. Shout out to Tyler B. He did amazing. He was one of my favorite students from CGMA, and he had no professional work experience whatsoever, but he showed up, he communicated well, he had put the time in on class, like all very valuable skills outside of art alone, just showing up consistently, delivering consistently, and I could instantly see like, I want you. And he took the reins basically from there, and it had shifted within 6 months. He was basically facilitating most of the work, and he did brilliantly, and we've been kind of going ever since on things like that. So I got pretty much 90% of the work from Epic off my shoulders, and it was awesome and brilliant. I was still hands on in some capacity every day, but I mean I was freeing myself up, like 7-8 hours a day. And because like again I could delegate it, so like just even learning to delegate has been just a more long-term skill that I've been working on, and I'm working on it this year. I never delegated anything in regards to my YouTube, and later last year it started with teaching. I've hired additional instructors on, but now I'm outsourcing help for YouTube, for content creation, for shorts, for scripting, for editing, and that's freeing me up, because that's the one thing that I'm learning through all this, especially now that I've had just hit 40, is that nothing to me personally is more valuable than time. I rather make financially like way lower money and just spend all my earnings hiring help to free me up. The the most I can. As long as I have enough to cover, basic finances and stuff, like I'm happy. Like I don't need to stockpile money. And of course the benefit is I get to hire relatively people with little to no experience because I see them as students and I get to give them an opportunity. So it for me, it's a win-win for everyone.
Right. That's awesome. Um, I because like it's really interesting to hear there's this transition between the educational endeavors that you are working on and the professional endeavors. So you're kind of like bring people in, train them, make sure that like the skills are solid, and then if any of them click with you, then you will bring them to your professional business side, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Like it kind of create like this sort of ecosystem that
Yes.
yeah, that is I think I have seen this kind of format before with Feng Zhu, because the way that he talk about his school and the way some of the students get transitioned from being a student to a professional concept artist with his studio, like that's something that has been done before, but I think it is something that is done quite tastefully, in my opinion, to to give someone the skills and allow them to have the opportunity to express that using such skills. Of course, like they have to go through all these trials and errors, but uh, but then like the one who sticks around are the ones who can help you out in the long run.
Yeah. Like, and so much of it is luck too, and that's what I'm learning because you coming back to your previous question about that, it's like I try to look at people at the top of the field and really see like what they're doing and how they're doing it. Like there'd be years, watching the Feng Zhu's design cinema, and he would talk about these things like, gosh, I thought like I want that to be me. I want this, and I just like, "Oh, how do I bring in some big clients?" And it's funny. I started short short tangent. I get like the bigger clients from like weird personal works. It's never from my other client work because I can't show, right? We're sitting on 3 years of Epic work. They won't let us like share any of it. They locked that up. They threw away the key. But like if I did like the piece in particular that had caught the art lead's eye, um, went over there was just like a paint over I took to a finish over a student's piece. So I was meeting with my students. I was sometimes, I'll do really quick paint overs for our call and in our coaching session. And then if I really like it, sometimes I'm like, you know what? Just gonna go, I'm gonna keep going with it. Sometimes I can't stop myself. If I like their picture, if I like the idea, I'm not gonna halt the brakes. This one I didn't. It was like a little cliffside house of sorts. But I finished it and as I threw it on ArtStation and say what it is and stuff. And they're like, they saw that image above everything else. They're like, you know what? Like, I think you'd be good, for Fortnite and stuff. I was like, cool. So like, you never know what you're putting out there. It wasn't like a planned portfolio piece or project. It was just like a quick one-off image that had resonated, with a particular person on a much bigger team for a much bigger company. And through that whole chain of command, kind of really kicked off my whole thing of being a studio. And so like what I'm kind of getting toward is all of that was like like a shit chain of luck. Like there is so much luck involved. Like my student was in my class when I happened to get like a pile of work I didn't want to do anymore. So like, oh, you're good. This is here. Now let's start your career. And like I'm sure like that's how it was for like some of Feng Zhu's help as well. It's like right time, right place. So much luck.
Right.
Speaking of luck, what would be your own definition of luck?
Of luck, well, having the skill set, hopefully, right, to back your your business up, whatever you're packaging in your portfolio. Of course, having that there is just step one, and then you just need the right eyes often enough for a good fit project. Because I've signed up certainly what looked good on paper for projects in the past, and it was either like a communication thing where we just weren't good at a good fit, or we weren't good at talking at like, "Hey, this is what they want." There's a lot of people in like indie and smaller studios that are just lousy at communicating with artists. And I get frustrated with that because like they're telling me what to do, telling me how to do my job. And yeah, they're hiring me and I'm there to fulfill that need. But at the same time, like they're not even able to articulate what they want. And so it's just like, friction, loads of friction. So sometimes these jobs don't work. And that's the biggest difference, right? Between like a AAA client is like they know so much better how to communicate with us, with the creatives. And so it works a lot better. And so like just having like again the right person at the right time, seeing that skill and then being able to communicate with you, I think that's a great thing. But to a degree, we have to do everything we can to make our own luck, right? We have to
Yeah.
work on our communication skills. We have to have a good body of work, and then hopefully the right person will see it. So for me, it's like I think even looking into the future, having the website, right, having our gallery, that's great and all, but like it very rarely and seldomly they get that organic traffic, right? People often now will discover any kind of creative through social media in some way, right? Doing content creation. And that's why this year I'm double downing. I'm putting double the effort in to my content creation because like people were going to see me on some platform, Instagram, YouTube or something, then they'll go to my site. Because it's about getting eyes to you, right? Into your content. And when you're like anything, the best thing we could do is just try. And I
Yeah.
think nowadays with all the various forms of content creation, that's where a huge part of like I think just development and the future is to getting eyes, the right eyes, right on your work.
Yeah, it's all about getting ourselves seen. And I'm pretty sure you get also a lot of students asking you always about the luck factor in the industry. And it's
Hmm.
undeniable that sometimes you are the right time, right one, but you still have things again in your control that you can
Yep.
individually do in order to force that luck to happen. It's
Yep.
just
Right. We can.
being able
Sorry.
to sorry, it's just about being able to recognize opportunities to jump on them and to handle them well. And
Yeah.
everyone has some, and probably with sharper eye, we could have seen way more opportunities actually. It's just eventually it's just a matter of volume. And we're not trying to sell to millions of people. We're just trying to
Hmm.
get one job first.
Yep.
So it's a very good risk to reward ratio in our favor, I think.
Right. And the best way to do that is authenticity. Like
Yeah.
my best videos do the best when I try not to be really stiff and I just kind of be more of myself. I be more, like talk about more personal things. Those videos usually do better. And my art usually does better. Like that one I was talking about, and it was just something personal that kind of came out a little more, effortless. And it's not like the cookie cutter, oh, I followed a big tutorial online image or I followed a YouTube video. And right, it's just a kind of buy the books portfolio. 2024, buy the books portfolios simply aren't going to be enough. And that is one of the bigger changes I feel going forward is like you need more work that's going to say something and show that in the process as well.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. And okay, so let's try to like I bet throughout your journey you have had plenty of ups and downs with your business from all these
Mhm.
hard-earned lessons. So perhaps you can give the best three business decisions like right on the top of your head, and uh if you can get into each of those, and perhaps with one you can provide like a negative experience, a negative lesson, but it yields like great results afterward.
Well, yeah, we talked in somewhat many of these, but of course, like just diversifying income for any kind of creator, whether you're selling an Etsy shop, whether you're selling some kind of consultation service, whether you work as a bus driver like I used to do, at the end and the beginning of the day and can do art in the middle and at night. I think just being flexible as a creator is one of the best things that I ever did. Starting the YouTube was the best thing that I've ever did because it's created so many opportunities. And then of course hiring, learning, being comfortable, with delegation for me was like the other really, really big thing because one of the earlier mistakes I did, right, was spreading myself too thin and under delivering for some of my clients that I had in the early days of me being a dad, in 2017. and I was just I couldn't keep up with the workload, and I I was trying to grasp on that sinking ship, and I was like, but I didn't have the mental, I don't know, I'm gonna say mental maturity there, but I just didn't have the thought to like, hey, just go ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. That's what I learned, is that it is okay. And I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't know even how to approach it. But I'm glad, that I did. And I think the other big takeaway too that I wish I had done better, was just investing in myself more, and particularly at an earlier age. Like it took me forever to invest in a proper YouTube. I'm always on camera. I don't know why I waited till 2021 or 2022 even to like get a good camera. I was using like a $40 Amazon budget webcam for like all my things for years. And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, $800 camera. That's so much money, right? I think artists, because like money, we work so hard for it. And when it comes in, we're so reluctant to invest some of that money back into ourselves. So like I wish I had done a lot of that. I changed I used to have a very cluttered, dark studio space. And that is like finally, coming out of 2022, I was like, I need to hire a contractor. We're redoing all the walls. I'm rewiring everything. I'm getting professional grade lighting and camera set up. I just wish I did it years ago. I don't know why I was so hesitant, and reluctant to invest in myself. This is like part of everything I do, and it should look more professional, to a degree. So I wish I did that more. And like now that this is taken care of, now it's going to be like, okay, if I can land, and I'm getting like financial coaching, business coaching. I want to invest. I'm starting to dabble into that, but I've never been super great with money. And I just want to be more responsible with it. I want to be better with it, right? Because now I've got to do retirements. I got to save for my kids. I got to budget staff, staff. I have to make sure I can hire that, maintain that help with, and home and all the other repairs and car. Like the older you get, the bigger the bills get. So I got to get better and more efficient with money. So I'm learning like, okay, I need to invest in business coaches. And I learned that too. Like, from Chris Do, like he said, he's like, he invested over like the 13 years with his business coach. I think it ended up costing him, like 500. I did the math. It was like $500,000. And he's like, but it's priceless because he's scaled my business, into doing like 6 million a year. So like, is that worth it? Yeah, it's probably worth it way some, even though like to a lot of people, it's like, yeah, $500,000 is a lot of money. But again, you get back what you put into almost anything if you're, kind of remotely logical about it. So like, that's going to be one of the next steps for me, is getting better with investments and business coaching.
Yeah, that's extremely insightful. I think at times we are more reluctant to help ourselves than helping others, right? Like I think it doesn't just come with artists, but it comes with everyone. Because we will always try to be somewhat heroic. We will try to help other people out, but when it comes to us, sometimes we neglect. And so it's really important to, see into ourselves and take care of ourselves, take care of our business, right? Like give it a proper treatment rather than just a afterthought, right?
Hmm. Yep, and I was already doing that, just like teaching alone, and I was just always like outputting, and just like with people or creatives that experience some sort of burnout, it's just because they're just constantly on output mode, and all of us need to be cultivated and nurtured, right? And add to that input, as well, whether it's consuming the right kind of reference or going on a trip just to get a mental break. Like I don't carry sketchbooks. I don't do work when I'm away, when I'm traveling. I'm not that kind of creator. When I shut off, it's a hard shut off. And I leave it at that. And that's, I think, helped maintain a lot of this made it sustainable, is that I don't as much now. I try not to multitask in that regard. And I have designated times, right, for work, for play, and for family. Or by play, I mean just like personal time, I think everybody needs some of that. But if you're, again, like I did in the past, spread yourself too thin, it leads to nothing good.
Right. Mm, so so I can see you like perhaps you have had this transition from being intuitive and being everywhere, just slightly scattered, towards like being disciplined and structured, right? So
Mhm.
when was the point in which you were a bit of a scatterbrain, and how did you transition yourself into it? I can only imagine it's partly because of your attempt to build a family and trying to make it
Yeah.
a better a like being a better dad.
Oh, that's 100% what it is. Because I'm like many people out there. I'm a creative mind. I'm scattered, and if you ask my wife, I'm still a bit scattered. She won't let me handle anything remotely responsible within the home, right? She does all the appointments. She take care of all the kids and like what their appointments and what they need there and to myself, because I've put so much of that focus in on the business side of the things, and I'm not great at it inherently. I the first time I showed up with my accountant and I had, like, my yearly finances, it was just like I wrote it out on, like, short paper, and I just, like it like chicken scratches, and he just like, God, he wanted to throw himself off the boat, and then my wife's looking at me, he's like, "That's what you brought?" And I got my accountant and my wife just both there grilling me, and this was somewhere I think in 2018 or 17, and I'm just like, "Yeah, I gotta do better." I don't take initiative often enough to do that. So like my wife was kind enough. She built me the spreadsheets. Okay, here, this is how you're you put your numbers in. This is how you're gonna track your income and your expenses. And
Oh,
then
bless you.
she set it up for me. I can't take credit for that. So I think all of us, whether it's external help, in my case with like freelancers, or it's internal help, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a sibling, anyone you love, if you do need some kind of support in some capacity, and that's what's really kind of helped me get into better. So now there's an occasional person, like, because I deal with all kinds of people, all over the world, and a lot of it, if I'm like not at a work time, and it'll just pop up on my phone, or if because I do put my phone into like a rest and do not disturb mode, in most evenings. So like sometimes in the morning when I get up, yeah, there could be like, and sometimes things are missed. That's human, and I'm like, oh, I need a schedule change. Be a student, and occasionally I won't see it, and then like our wires get crossed. But for the most part, I'm better at recording all my data now, and I'm of course much better at, I think, the calendar. You just maintaining a calendar that took me a whole career alone to get better at and more consistent with. And I bet there's calendar apps out there I should probably invest in, right? And there's softwares out there too for planning things like Notion, which is on my to-do list to get in, because like I just getting so many ideas and content things that I want to line up, and business things. I want to do so much. So I need there's constant ways to make I think make ourselves more efficient, and I'm still working on that like every every step of the way. But I think it all starts with the calendar and priority lists.
Yeah, definitely. For me, what I've been using is a planner.
Mhm.
I have it almost all the time around me, and this planner separates itself out into days, weeks, months, and throughout like 1 year. So for every year, I'll just buy a new one, and it's been extremely useful like right from the get-go of my career, because without that I don't think that I can get to where I am now, because simply because I have something to track myself with, like to keep myself responsible and keep myself on the level of alertness that is enough for me to take on to, but not too alarming to the extent that it will overwhelm me. Perhaps it's the
Yeah.
same. Is the same process for you? Like try to find that balance.
Yep. What's measured is improved, right? And I think like yourself, I get overwhelmed easy, and that's led to me having like short fuses on occasion, and that's something, as a family person, I have to constantly keep in check, because business can be very overwhelming, and I think just my personality wise, I get overwhelmed really simple, or really easily. So I have to simplify everything, or I have to really break down many things into much smaller steps, because I could be my own worst enemy in many scenarios with that kind of thing.
Right. Right. So, okay. So with this, I like to look into your perspectives when it comes to work-life balance. Like do you set it in stone, or do you have like certain sense of flexibility to it? And perhaps you can demonstrate it with the audience how you see your day like on a daily basis.
My day to day is very different every day. I want to say it's a rotating schedule. Maybe parts of it are, but I used to try to do things set in stone. Like even when I if I'm coaching someone for 8 calls back in the day, it used to be like, let's meet, Johnny on Monday, every Monday, at like 10 p.m. Let's just do that. And it was set in stone. For some students, that still works. For me, sometimes it still works. But I've not only with just like teaching and coaching, but like with my life in general, I'm trying to learn and adapt, because it's much more valuable to have way more flexibility. So like my life is like a constantly it's constantly a jigsaw of like these moving pieces. And they're like, okay, I'll talk to a student. Do you want to meet next week, or do you want to meet in 2 weeks from now, and shift to make that work? Or like with my kids, if they're like randomly home from a day, now I have to like move people around, or shuffle other kind of meetings, because now I got to 10 of them, and I can't do some calls with them home, and some calls I can do with them home. There's some work I can do, when I'm with my family and with my kids. There's other things that I can't. So I'm learning, what are my limits and what's appropriate. Like I can't shoot videos and create content, when I'm hanging out with my son every afternoon. But that is the perfect time that I can video edit it. And because the detailing work, or finishing up other things, that's also low, like a low mental strain. So I tend to dive that into that in the afternoons, or answer emails, like just leave it for the afternoon, because again, I'm not going to have to be like as mentally engaged with that. And it's not that I'm trying to like multitask by like, okay, I'm going to set my kid up with an iPad and then just try to do as much work as I can. But I've learned, again, if I can integrate better, so my family into my work life, and vice versa, and not have it be like two separate entities constantly at odds with each other, it works a little bit better. So even though I could technically afford to put him into daycare for like full time, I choose to, like, we're going to only do in the morning, so I can have my kid free time, and then we can have family time together, and I can do like a little bit of work, with that, and he can kind of come to work with me, and kind of see, and how some of that stuff can be done, or he could sit there and play with his toys or something. So I'm trying to just not always run up hills, and be at odds with my schedule, and I'm trying to just be flexible and adapt. And sometimes, of course, I don't work 8 hours a day. I haven't in a long time, but realistically, of course, some things will bleed over now to the weekend. So as long as, and I talked to my wife about that, as long as, what, Saturday afternoon I might have to do a call or a meeting, and then Sunday I'm going to have to do, the feedbacks for CGMA, and that'll be for like a little bit of time on a Sunday afternoon. And as long as they're okay with that and I'm okay with it, and it gives us, because my kids are a handful, right? So like my wife will want to break. I want to break from them when they're home, especially cooped up in the house during the winter months. So it's like, okay, you take the kids for a while. I'll get some work done. Then I'll take the kids and stop working, and then you can go out and do your thing. So like it's, I guess, with any kind of partner, right? It's learning how to synergize with all the pieces. And it's something that's like, I never feel like we're 100% there, but it's something we're constantly trying to get better at.
Yeah. And I suppose like as long as I think as long as there's a willingness to take on that, right, to be understanding, to be adaptable, then I think things will work out, right? As with most couples, when they're willing to work it out, then you know
Yep.
they will see better days for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tim, do you have any questions for our friend Tyler here?
Right now, I'm just listening. It's been very interesting. There was not that much to add, to be honest. You are talking about the work and life balance. I just want to bounce on a specific question I was planning for you, if it's not too personal.
No,
I've been
it is
following
good.
you a few years ago for your incredible physical transformation, still tied to this work-life balance.
Mhm.
How did you get it to fit in your schedule? How do you stick to it? And what are the main benefits you got out of that? Of course, aside from the physical transformation and feeling a bit better, of course,
Yeah.
what are the positive side effects that you got with that?
Yeah, for context, in 2022, right? For everyone listening, I did a body recomp, which means basically trying to put on some muscle mass and lose a bunch of weight. Because you know what would happen? I fell into, I'm not going to say a depression necessarily, but you know, 2020 was a bad year for a lot of people.
Mm,
Uh, you know, for me, it hit hard. Like I had always worked out to some degree. You know, I liked to get out in public away from my office. So I loved going to the gym. So I did get really hurt, you know, when they closed the gyms and I'm just at my desk and I don't necessarily have the space and you know with the family all home like I just couldn't get my release. So that eventually kind of led you know among other things in 2020 to booze, and I was just drinking like 5 nights a week, and I was putting on weight, and, you know, it like, by, like, early or sometime 2022, it just I was in a really bad spot. I was still I never drink in front of my kids, that's my disclaimer, but, you know, every evening, I needed to wind down. Being trapped with young kids, as I'm sure a lot of parents could attest to during those times, and they're not going to school, it is absolutely testing you in all kinds of capacities. But like, you know, I just hold out. It's like a little powder keg, get them in bed. But every night I was drinking every night. And I was always good for the next day. I never drank on like a call with a client or a student or anything, but like it was like my vice, you know, and I was just drinking like way too much and I was putting on some weight. And eventually, I think you just look in a mirror at some point, or like I had to. And I just, you know, before I don't like being not in control, and I've realized I got to that point that, you know, I was questioning things like, "Is this controlling me? Can I actually stop this if I want to? Am I an alcoholic?" And I asked myself, like, I don't wanna be labeled an alcoholic. I don't wanna have a reputation for an alcoholic. And basically just like that, just like, you know, having some personal time to just ask myself and reflect that, I was like, "I need to make a change." Um, so of course, even like before all the gyms and stuff were open back up, like literally the day they opened those things up, I ran back, got a new membership somewhere, and I was just like I was gonna commit to changing because I just did not like who I become. And I mean, I'm essentially kind of my own boss because I don't like people telling me what to do. I want to be in control. So my wife does too, and that's sometimes why we butt heads in other ways. We got two people that like to call the shots. So we're working on that. But again, I wanted to be the one to call the shots for me physically, and I just decided just like that. You know what? I was doing pretty good. You know, like 2018 or 19, I was in okay shape, but like I realized I'm getting close to 40. I don't know if I'm gonna peak yet. And I was like, you know, I'm gonna give this a sincere effort and I'm gonna look at the right resources. You know, which is all online. Like everything you can get for free information
yeah,
wise. Like you want to learn color and light? Don't buy my course. You can find it online. People need help implementing anything.
yeah,
But if you really look and you're curious, anything can almost be found online for free. And I
yeah,
did that. And that's the difference between what I was running into now is like I was getting the knowledge and then learning how to properly apply it. Because like I wish I had all that, you know, even like in 2010, you know, before I was married and when I was single, and I tried to figure it all out on my own, you know, with like, you know, like a Men's Health magazine, because like there was nobody was fitness influencing on YouTube in 2010 and giving fitness tips and showing like, hey, this is how you get down to like 12% body fat. Nobody was doing that. We just kind of tried a little bit of everything. And I only got average results because I didn't know what I was doing. But you know, now that I know how to be curious, I know how to ask the right questions and I can troubleshoot, right? It's about diagnose and troubleshooting. I just got the right information that I needed. And I never had trouble with discipline or putting in the work. I just need to know what work to put in. And then I spent a year basically losing weight. All year I was just, eating at a deficit, and eating super clean. So I was, getting rid of all the potato chips, all the fried food, all my things that I used to love. I was reprogramming my mind to just think of like, does my body need this? No. And I just toss it. So I just ate really clean for the better part of the year, got super thin, got down, lost a bunch of strength, in the process as that happens. And then, I was spending from then till now trying to eat I eat a ton now, eat the good food to build some of that muscle mass back up. But like that was the process. And of course that requires a certain amount of time to delegate each day. Like, and that was eating a lot of time too. But luckily I kind of started this when I had already kind of learned that I could hire some help. So again, I could maintain some clients as well as have 90 minutes a day to do take care of myself physically, which has been great. But like it a lot of it was diet, of course. Like we're only like we're the sum of what we feed our body, and if like, you're eating crap, it's gonna kind of turn to crap. You can't, they say, right, you can't outrun a bad diet. And that is so true, because like once I cut the booze out, and then like just a few of my things, I mean, I always try to eat okay, but once I cut some of like those big things that I was like, again, in proportion control, right? I got the smart watch and a food scale, and what's measured is improved. I measured everything and stuck with it, and I got insane results, which I thought was impossible because I come not from great genetics. I'm the only one in my family probably not obese and does not have diabetes. My whole family does. So it's not genetics. I'm fighting age and of course the family thing, but it's like it's doable. It like if you just put systems, right? You won't rise to your goals, but you'll fall to your systems if you just stick with a routine and consistently, through the dip, both whether it's your training or art or yourself, if you could just go through like those grueling months and where you're not seeing much benefit and you're putting loads of time in, you just keep it'll flatline and it'll come back out, at the other end. So it just takes, right, like dedication, enough to kind of do that, both creatively and in any kind of personal endeavor. And so that's what I did, and I've been maintaining to a large degree ever since. I'm just trying different things out. Like I just throw different obstacles at my body now, and of course that just different routines, different ways of like eating, just adjusting calories and macros, things like that. I just want to see what I'm always curious to see, like, okay, what will happen to my body if I do this versus that. And I'm kind of just using it as a big like testing grounds. But yeah, the benefits of course were that, like, I used to get tired all the time. um all the time. I think I was just mentally fatigued, but it was affecting me physically. And now I'm like I was telling you guys before, I'm pretty sharp, from 5 or 6 in the morning right till bedtime, and I'm not feeling lethargic, in the afternoons. I used to have the afternoon lulls, but now I'm like pretty good at just cutting out the waste and just keeping myself finely tuned. I have just much higher energy levels, and that's what I need for my business, and that's what I need for my family. Yes, I'm. There's always energy drinks. Like it helps suppress appetites. They help. I'm a caffeine. I do like my caffeine. I'm not going to say I do it without it, but I limit it, to 300 to 400 milligrams a day. I don't go crazy. I probably just one a day, and I'll just nurse it, just nurse it all morning long or whatever, and then I won't have any, after 3 p.m. So that way when it's time for bed, I will crash, and I'll crash out. And yeah, it builds a nice routine, I should say.
Yeah.
Oh, did that answer it?
Yeah, that's amazing, and you opened up so many doors. Like first of all, it goes back to something that my dad told me when I really started working hard in my career. He was always telling me you need to be tired physically to rest mentally. I think it was one of the best advice he ever gave me. Like just going to the gym and burn a ton of calories and get exhausted physically. It's such a good mental reset, especially for such a job that we are doing, which is extremely stress inducing. I think we are constantly trying to solve problems. We are always confronted to problematics. It's just mentally exhausting. And so many people, especially when they start, they tend to overlook that and only work until they burn out.
Yep.
And it's also good because having those kind of non-negotiable days tends to structure your entire schedule around that.
Mhm.
And something because non-negotiable, you walk around it, and it's so much easier than trying to fit in an already busy schedule. And the last thing that you said, you need to track everything and monitor everything to improve it. It can be applied to so many aspects, weight and body, of course, but also business. Like you look at your finance, every time you can experiment something because you have the data, you can track the kind of result you do, and you can, as you say, troubleshoot everything. And it takes a bit of effort, but very fast, I think you see the benefit of that where whatever you're doing, even when you are just trying to learn art.
Yep.
You monitor everything you do. Every time you have a struggle, you retro engineer, you consider that as an opportunity to improve. And if you go into that habit of constantly monitoring and reviewing everything you do, that's how you improve extremely, extremely fast. And also you grow some sort of confidence, I would say, because you know that even doing a mistake is not a bad thing. On the contrary, you seek out mistake when you can afford to do them because it's an opportunity for growth in some way.
Yeah.
Um,
Like
I
100%.
Yeah, and I think for me, like I used to have a problem with trying to bring my energy level up during harder times. And I've been like throughout my career, I did try like plenty of things except caffeine. I'm not a caffeine guy, but um what happened like throughout this process of trying like polyphasic like sleep schedules and trying to get into calisthenics and going to the gym and all that, like there's this one thing that kind of fixed me up quite in like in quite a great margin. It's good sleep schedule. So like I tried my best to keep my my sleep hours within 7.5 hours, and I'll try my best to wake up at 7:30 in the morning. And then I repeat that for 1 week, and it's just like immediate like spike of energy level, simply because I have a habit to stick to. Like my brain is cleared of all the junk through the night, and it
Mhm.
keeps me conscious. Like in the early afternoon. Some people tend to get like quite tired in like early mid afternoon, and for me that was resolved with proper sleep schedule. And
Yeah.
and at times it's best to just be self-aware, right? Because like some people may be like, oh, I'm conscious, everyone is conscious, but being conscious is different from being self-aware, right? Like you just notice like very small habits of yours and try to find the right kind of information to work with. Perhaps you can look for professionals to help yourselves out. Like I can imagine some artists being so afraid of getting additional help, such that like they'll be like, I don't want to go find a doctor. Like if they figure something out, something is wrong with me, then I will not have the time to do the work. And that's so wrong
Yeah.
in so many ways, because you make all this money and you don't invest in yourself. You don't want to live a longer life. You don't want to be creative in the longer terms, or perhaps you are unaware of it, and so you just think like, oh, the work is more important than your own health. Then that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also,
I got
yeah,
artist
go on.
friends that have got blood clots literally in their legs. Their legs are about to
Oh,
burst because they were sitting down 8 to 10 hours a day. There's not a period during any day of the week I sit for more than 2 hours, and then I'm switching tasks or modes or something to just keep the blood circulating properly. And it's good to work. I find like focus increases immensely when I personally do like short bursts of that deep work. In
Yeah.
2 hour. I don't know if it's an intention thing, but I get antsy if I do anything longer than 2 hours. I don't even like movies anymore that run more than 2 hours. I like to kind of get into a frame of mind, and set up that focus for whatever task it is. But like 2 hours, I'm ready to kind of switch gears, and it helps me recalibrate and come back to that task later with like a fresh perspective. So I think it's just constantly for me cycling what the task is and what the current objective that I'm working on, and then it keeps me moving and kind of compartmentalizing my thought process too, which again keeps me up. And like you said too, James, like regular sleep schedules are great, and I know different things work differently for everybody, but like I've never been, and sometimes I do work at night, but like I do so much better. I think the human itself, we're designed to get sun, right? We're designed to like we need that vitamin D, and it supercharges us. So like when I stop working like nights and then work now very much just to like working daylight hours, like I don't get tired ever, and even, like, with the amount that is on my plate. And so helping all of this too, like, just coming back to, like, that last thing is, like, a big decision for me to kinda work and operate this way is I gotta be a role model, for my kids. So I couldn't see I wanna just I don't wanna force their hand into doing anything. Like, I'll probably never ask them encourage them to work out or even to do art, but I'm just gonna do the best versions of whatever I'm gonna do. And if they want to make that choice, on their own, and then I think that's good because I find when you tend to push anything upon anyone, there's always resistance and they just don't want
Yeah.
to do it.
Mm.
They need to be willing to do something, and if they see the result through you, it's like the best
Yeah.
inspiration ever. If they see you are getting healthier, you are getting more solid, more available for them because you are outsourcing and managing your life better, of course, first of all, it's going to benefit them tremendously, and also they will be conditioned for years and years in your example that it's a good thing to do, so they are very likely naturally to replicate that.
Yep. Best we can do is, and that's kind of been more like my thing, more in recent years with social media is like the best we can do is to lead by example.
Yeah,
And so, like, without getting overly preachy at I like to share personally what has worked for me and or what
mm,
has worked for my students or kids, and just to put something positive out there, of course, in the online world, or to put something out there in the world, because there is like terrible things happening. There's negative things. Like it's negative things always make the headlines, and that's what we see. So I almost take it as my responsibility. I guess in this current kind of position that I'm in now is just to shed light on things that work and more of like the positive nature of things.
yeah,
And that I think to some degree is always kind of played back into the business side of things as well. Just doing well for others, serving others to whatever capacity you can, and then maybe at some point there's a return on that.
yeah. And
Mm.
yeah, it can be applied even when teaching. You have to lead by example if you want to establish trust, if you want the student to know that what you did work, they can relate to you thanks to that. And it's super important, and especially in today's climate where it's very, not even in the art space, but overall with the world since probably 2020, the pandemic, it's a very anxiety inducing world that we live at. When you look at the news, it's always
Mhm.
terrible news about anything. There's a catastrophe every 6 months. um,
Yep.
it goes back to what you can do individually to go well, and if you can just share that online instead of going with that horrendous apocalyptic narrative, at least you are not adding oil to the fire, but you are also probably, if you just inspire one more person to take action
Mhm.
and take responsibility first and then take action, it can have a massively positive advantage, and it can
Yeah.
ripple exponentially very fast, because you, again, if someone take example on you and get results, you have earned someone that trusts you, and that will spread the word too, and that's also how you can impact a lot of people just by your example.
Yep, for sure.
Yep.
I Oh
And
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, yeah, I got so sick, being in the various online spaces that I am of just seeing, even artists like we're just attacking each other, or just whether it's just sharing
Yeah,
negative things on anything, and it's like they're right to express that, of course. But I look at that, and you know what, like I ask myself, like, do I want to see this? Do I want to get into this kind of drama? You're like, no, no, I'm gonna do the opposite, and I'm gonna share a small victory. And again, positive thinking keeps us from sinking, and it really, even like when I got let off from that other contract job 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I hit like a little lull for like for an evening and a night, and I was just trying to, like, okay, I got to recalibrate the next business strategy. I was in a internally, I'm like, I'm not super happy about any of this, but it's like by the next morning, it's like, okay, here's the plan. Let's, and I outlined like 6 YouTube videos, and I planned content, for like a month, and just, get right back at it, right on the horse, and start to plan things out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's also something great when artists are protecting like the next generation of artists against all that stress-inducing moments. So many people gave up just because they got exposed to so many negativity online. Again, it's understandable, but it brings nothing positive. And I'm back on what you said about social media. Every time I see a post, I'm always asking myself, is it bring me something valuable in my life or not? If it's not a hell yes, it's not very interesting. And at the moment, I think spreading the virtual online is definitely not a winning strategy. It's doing a lot of harm to an already stressed community. And also, it's kind of weird because as artists, we tend to be very sensitive by nature.
Yeah.
Probably what makes us artists. And I don't know, it might sound a bit negative, but I also think that moment of hardship is revealing a lot of bad things in the art community, a lot of toxicity that was kind of concealed, kind of under the carpet, that is kind of surfacing at the moment. And it seems that a lot of stress, a lot of struggles, a lot of slow burnout is actually bursting out at the surface and revealing itself in the community. Are opening up a lot about those kind of issues. And again, back to that idea, I think it's important that they also see positive models that can win, that can build other systems that work. And also, I think we need to shed more light, as you did at the beginning, about other options that we have as artists to not solely rely on client work and such. It's only one egg in one basket. And a lot of people, again, learn the very hard way that you should not bet only on that. Even some people working for like 10 years in big companies who got laid off. Unfortunately, it sucks. But at the same time, it's kind of up to everyone to still cultivate your options and such. In some way, you, quote unquote, decide to get soft and relaxed and not ask for everyone. And you decide to get comfortable. But there's always a price to pay, unfortunately.
Yeah, I only had 3 years at Epic, and I was gone in the blink of the eye. I had friends at Riot that worked there for 8 years, gone in the blink of an eye. That there's no sense of loyalty anymore, and things are far less personable. Like my father would tell me about that. Like back in the day, you do very common. You do business lunches. You take out your boss or your super not even your supervisor, but maybe it's like your supplier, like the people you do business with, and everything was so personal back then. And you'd work with companies for like 30 plus years, and now it's like the gears are always changing so much. There's never time to, like, it's almost like the corporations and the way the corporate life is, it's all designed to not be personable and to just treat any of us as expendable cogs. And so like the best thing we could ever to do is to learn to be self-reliant.
Yeah, so for me, as someone who is part of the Gen Z generation, I think the way most of us treat companies is that, if companies and corporations are disloyal to us, we won't be loyal to them. So one of the way one of the things that's been happening with my generation is that they don't commit, so they just gonna work in a company for 1 to perhaps max out like 2 years, and they will jump to another company, because the idea is that whenever you jump company, you get like a huge salary bump, and yeah.
It's always about that idea of what's in it for me. And now our generation, especially even more for the next one, they are always asking what's in it for me every time they commit to a job. And as soon as they find something better, we tend to shift and achieve extremely fast. It creates this kind of mercenary approach. It's standardized freelance too. But at the same time, I start to think that more and more that with today's situation, freelancing, it was very lucrative a few years ago. It's becoming more and more unstable. That's why you need to, again, cultivate that business approach of diversifying, not too early. Like when I hear like beginning artists telling other beginning artists you need to have an Etsy shop and stuff, no, it's going to be a waste of time and money because you don't have the audience, you don't have the skill yet. And those problematics, they come naturally. Generally, you max out on one skill, on one source of revenue, and then eventually it overflows and creates other sources. And generally, the problematics highlights itself naturally. As you say, Tyler, at some point you have to delegate. At some point you're asking yourself, how do I scale my business? And those problematics comes kind of naturally at a moment where you hit a wall at some point.
Yeah, and compounding those skills. So like I was already teaching YouTube, or teaching on YouTube, for like 5 years. I never expected a dime, never did it for a dime, but like that naturally, like, okay, I can teach, I can shoot a video. That's a compounding skill that can make something. And then that can compound, 10 years later to like, okay, now that I've become a bit more of an influencer in some ways, now I can start negotiating with brands and do brand deals. And now that all kind of compounds onto those other skills that I've already built and developed. And it hopefully, as I get older and get more experience, that's something that can still continue to grow and develop. But yeah, like you guys are saying, I think there's what I'd call, because I see it a lot, in our community. It's probably in every community, but I don't spend a lot of time lurking in other communities. Is that I think it's part of that entitlement complex, where everyone's like, F capitalism, F bosses, F the rich, things should be free. And, I deserve a raise, but none of these people want to put the time in, or they put the time in for a little bit and they never got out of the dip. And it's like, you really got to put the time in and then take the L and keep on going again and again. And again, there is no ceiling to like what you can do and what you can achieve if you actually put the time in. And that's been part of what I've been trying to push for this year, is to be, less corporate in how I talk and less even authored, that I'm just sharing positive things. But like, I want to share some of those negative aspects or things where I failed, and show like how to correct them and show that it's possible. Because I came from no skill. I came from no money. And I came with no plan. And if I can make it work with being like an average of everything, then certainly with someone with any kind of advantage, and maybe even not an advantage, could also do it.
Yeah.
Yep. I have met many artists who who got this sort of resistance from their family, because art will not make you rich. Art is like, you not be in so much pain. We don't want you to go through that. We don't want you to be dirt poor. Please don't take on art and all that. Some of them take on it seriously, and the artistic tendency just died off. Some will take the opposite side of that idea, and they will strive forward and create a sort of leap of faith. I suppose every one of us will have some sort of resistance one way or the other, no matter how supportive our parents can be or the environment we have can be. Sorry about this.
Oh, Kitty.
Okay, you go.
Okay.
Well, and I think at this point in time, it seems like society as a whole, it's getting into this long period of peace, such that competence is not something that is strongly emphasized to the extent that people become aware that they have to be competent. Some people may think that if you just ask, you have something, and that is competence, but in reality, it is not. Right. So I think that even with people doing mentorship and teaching the next generations of artists, I think it is quite important to emphasize on that front, in which like you gotta work hard. Like if you want to work smart, perhaps try to work hard first, get the solid skills right, then figure out to work smart. And imagine doing both smart and hard at the same time. But that comes much later, right? Like at first you gotta go through like this long grind and trying to find yourself through all this mess, and it takes so much
Yeah.
time. For people who, for artists who have been impatient with themselves, what do you have to share with them, Tyler?
Well, I see that a lot. I see that every week, right? That's a great question. Like 21, year old artists all the time saying, "Am I starting too late, or what do I do?" Because like I've got this portfolio, and it's like, and and I tell them, you're already so much better than I was at 30. You've already got a 10-year head start on me, and all you need to do, if you want to improve and excel even faster, of course, is just kind of come up with like a plan, and like and again, there's no shame as well working other non-creative jobs to keep, roof over the head, food on the table, whatever it is. Because a lot of us did that, and I was a delivery driver, a school bus driver. I've worked in various warehouses up till I was ready to take that leap of faith and say, you know what, I'm gonna stop this and do this. But I was never it was never a leap of faith in the regard that like I, I guess I didn't have like a backup plan, but like nothing is ever a certainty. And I know like, okay, if something did ever happen, I guess financially or whatever, like then of course I have no problem either and going back to some other. It's just being resourceful. So and that's what I try to teach like the younger generation a lot of the times is being resourceful and in those self-reliant skills, because like I said, like a lot of us, we can learn skills. I can learn business, I can learn marketing, all these things, and people can learn color, light, they can learn how to draw, pretty much for free. But like myself included, what I need to be not afraid of is to ask for help and to hire help to work on accelerating a lot of that process. Because a lot of us as humans, right, we make the same mistakes again and again, and we make bad mistakes lead to bad habits, and it sneaks up on all of us. We don't even know we're making bad habits. So I try to teach, these students to like, that independence of like, okay, find a community wherever that is. It doesn't have to be mine. It could be anyways. If it's a good community you find is healthy and you can nurture relationships in there, that's the best place. That's the best thing to do, is to work on that authenticity and to work on relationships. And then if you can, once you've got, like a baseline portfolio, like the basic skill building kind of portfolio, the first portfolio a lot of us have. So I've got multiple shots in perspective. Oh, I've got a couple props. I've got an interior and exterior, right? All the cookie cutter checkbox sort of things. Like once you can just build the base level skills, it's like go well beyond that. Try to dig and get a little more personal, get experimental even, with how you can not necessarily diversifying. Like you don't have to learn ZBrush, you don't have to learn Unreal, you don't have to learn 3D Code, Blender. Like, you don't have to learn every VR sculpting. You don't have to learn everything. Get like really, really good, at one thing and start to build a reputation for that. And
Yeah.
then, right, you can, one book that is pretty good about that, which I recommend, is Packaging Your Expertise by Elena Vincent. And then you can work on like, okay, like what can I do with this skill? But a lot of people, and myself as a younger artist, I fell into the trap. I did one image really well once, and I thought I was a pro. And I walked away. I made that first YouTube video where I painted that red cityscape, and I'm like, I got it. I'm a pro now. People like this. But in reality, like a pro will just keep showing up and doing it and doing it and trying to get better again. And I got resistance to learning, and at that point in my life, I had some of that, uh, the pitfalls, the ego even. And young people, it's very easy to get an ego, I think, especially when even a few things start to go right. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I've learned with age is like the I used to think I knew it all, essentially, and now the imposter syndrome was like a little bit there, but it actually kind of gets a little worse as I get older, because right, the more you learn that you don't know, and then the more I am constantly dealing with like, okay, I could do this really well, but like that still doesn't stop like all these other amazing things. And I still deal with imposter syndrome like every day. So I think, and I don't know any creator that really doesn't. So it's like, building the younger generations of skill set to like, look, this is normal. We all go through it. We all go through it still. And that hasn't changed, and that you're not alone. And it's like the better you can manage your relationship, with yourself and get to know yourself, that's what probably separates and breaks many artists, or not just their habits, but like how they can deal with a
Yeah.
lot of the day-to-day stresses that someone in a creative position has.
Yeah.
Because it has not gone away from me, I'll tell you that. But
Yeah,
going to the
yeah.
gym every day at 10, like, that helps me sort things out. Like, I was so jacked up to get on a call with you guys today, and I was in the gym at 5 in the morning. I was getting my run in, I was doing my weights, and I was like, "You know what? This is gonna be a great day," pumping myself up. But, like, it's very easy to not do that and to just sleep in or stay up too late and just to look at the negative side of everything, right? And then you can't escape it.
Yeah, and I think this is a good message for all the potential aspiring artists looking at the podcast or look at the replay. It's really that even when you are a pro, even with like 10 plus years of experience, you still have the same struggles as when you are beginning. It's just on a different scale. It's just you manage
Yep.
them differently. You still have imposter syndrome, and everyone, even the biggest rock star in the industry, they have imposter syndrome. And generally, the more experienced you are, the more self-critical you tend to become too. You just know to
Yeah.
manage it, to not make yourself sick about it.
Mm.
It's the same. And also, I'm pretty sure you see it with all your students. A lot of them, they are in a very big hurry. It's as you
Hurry.
said, you have those parents freaking out. You have that guilt of having everyone freaking out about you. You invest your ego and your identity into I am an artist, and for as long as you don't have a job, you have not fulfilled that, and it's not justifying all the effort that you have made. So the head of those students, they need to get a job in order to fix that identity problem in some way.
And
They,
social media, right, is
yeah,
largely to blame for
Oh,
that.
for
Things
sure.
like
yeah,
TikToks and short form content, all this junk
yeah,
food, like we're constantly spammed with
yeah,
time lapses, timestamp things, and even I'm guilty of this too. Like I'll put out a video and talk over it. I'm gonna edit all the bad parts of my painting out. So I'm kind of skewing that vision for students. And the students that see it live, they get to see like the struggle and like a
yeah,
lot of them like, yeah, this is quite different. And I always put that disclaimer out with them. I'm like, see, like I will spend 20 minutes getting the shape of this mountain right, and you will never see that in a time lapse. You'll see me make one brushstroke because I've practiced that brushstroke now for 20 minutes to get it just perfect. And that subtlety like that does not come out in short form content. It doesn't even come out in my long form
yeah,
content, largely on YouTube. But that's something like a hands-on experience will
yeah,
give, that kind of insight will provide students. And it's that mindset, and that things maybe come easier, or that we're not that I'm trying to falsely advertise how we can get here, or we do like we all like to not glamour it up, so much, but to we all like a pat on the back occasionally too. It's like, oh wow, you made that look easy, or you did that so fast. And it's like, yeah,
yeah.
but in reality, it took me 10 years of painting, 20 minutes of editing, and then like still 2 hours on top of that to make it look like that in some instances.
Yeah, it's just like the front page of ArtStation, and again, a lot of
Hmm.
aspiring artists, they fall into that mistake and misinterpretation about the industry that they need to do front page ArtStation content, while just like the lifestyle or the body shape they are on the front page of Instagram, it's not
Yep.
the norm. It's not even something that is potentially recommended. It's just what people like to consume. And the front page of ArtStation, and most of what is on ArtStation, actually, the sexy keyframes, the polished illustration, at least for concept art, it's only a fraction of
Little bit.
what we are doing in production. And
Yep.
the not so sexy sketches, the props, the
So much of it.
boring door handle, there's nothing about that.
Yeah.
And
Dude, we spent a
yeah,
week, my studio, doing just a drill bit, just a drill for like one of the Fortnite tanks.
yeah,
Tyler grinded out like 40 hours easily just doing a singular drill. And it's just like they're all production sketches. There's nothing glamorous about it.
yeah,
There's nothing right? It's just raw production work. And
yeah,
like ArtStation and any media, right, kind of makes things like a popularity contest. Even with like fitness influencers, they get super this is one thing I've learned as I started to dive down that rabbit hole, is like realistically they're not that cut all year round. They're going to get super fit, for like the summer and the good weather months. They're going to take enough photos and build enough media that they're going
yeah,
to just drip feed that for their thumbnails and anything else
100%.
all year round, because it
Yeah,
getting that tight and lean and hitting just even beautiful image after beautiful, it's not sustainable. Like, and that's why with students, to make a parallel, I don't encourage them to do just all long form projects where you have to literally spend 4 months, sculpting, building, planning, referencing, drafting. Like, no, like you got to switch it up. Do a fun 2-hour image. Do a 1 week project. Do a 2-day project. Scale, like constantly contrast how you're tackling problem solving.
Yeah.
I'm always doing that with students too. I'm always sharing them portfolios of people who got hired in incredibly big companies with no polish work. They're always, this kind of wolf in the Looney Tunes that is dropping his jaw. It's exactly the same thing. They cannot even conceive that you can get hired without a single polish image and just sketches. And just, it's where the value of the job is. You're being paid for those. The Polish pictures, it's less than 10% of the job. It's not what you're getting paid for.
Making pretty pictures, right? But that's why, like, for personal work, creators, I guess, generally like us, tend to want to do that, take our time with it a bit, because we never actually rarely do that on the job itself.
Exactly.
I think
again, our session.
Yeah, I think it's the impression factor and the inspiration factor with Instagram and ArtStation, right? Because like many students get inspired by these things, right? Like they thought that by getting into the job, like they will do only that. But imagine that like the devs from ArtStation will create like this button and you say by clicking this you will see all the production sketches. It's so like imagine that, and it like some of it will be boring as hell, but at least people will have the tool to manage their expectation. At times it's just like 90 10 ratio. Like at times like you have 2 to 6 months just to develop like an environment, and it's all sketches, and then you have like 3 days to a week to finish one final painting, and it's just like the tiny bit at the end of that cycle. And so I think with like even with portfolio from professionals, some of them only display the nicest stuff to look at, right? Simply because they treat ArtStation as a social media platform, not a portfolio platform. Like even with Instagram, that's for sure the case, right? Like they just post the best stuff to for eyes to see. And at times like and after all, even singers and legends in the industry, like they are simply human. Some of them are still chasing likes, right? They'll be like, okay, like the concept art I did for, let's say, Spider-Man 3 is a bit crap. Let me touch up a bit and then I'll post it online. Like they even spend time touching up the works during like after production, right? Simply so that they can post it online. So I think it's so
guilty. I did that.
So it's so key to just express it to students, to younger generations or artists, so that they can manage expectations.
Yeah, it's always managing expectations. I'm learning to do that with clients. You teach students how to do that with themselves. So many. That's such an unspoken part of the process.
Yeah, I think it's quite similar to the business stuff as well, because one of the things that get me and Tim to become a team is because the initiative that Tim took on is to provide a space so that he can mentor his students in a way that they become aware of the business side of things, not just the technical stuff. Because after getting the technical done right, then some, I know for a fact that there are many people out there who are technically awesome, but they can barely write an email. Like even with my studio, like I have email coming in all the time, and I think 70% of those emails are like crooked English, right? Like it's very broken. It's not proper. Some of them are very desperate. Some of them are straight up unprofessional. It's just like, give me job, please, right? Like some of us you still get emails like that, and imagine just being able to go to Google and type how to type a proper email, right? Just with that, and then you have right? Skill unlocked, right away. You just got it done, right? But barely anyone will go with that, right? They will just keep on pushing this idea that, okay, I'm expressing myself. Some of them even mistake that with expressing themselves, right? Like they'll be like, this is the way I express myself, so I don't have a need to fix my English. But at
Back to
times,
that entitlement thing.
yeah, exactly. It's a tough one to crack, but at the same time, I think it's tough because of the ego, but it's really quick to solve some of these things, right? You just provide them with certain guidelines. Some people are some of the stuff are harder to learn, but with the right structure, then you can get it done right.
You
With
can
you,
summarize it in
yeah.
one sentence. It's like,
Mm,
pick companies you like, make sure they hire at your level, understand what they want, angle that carrot in front of themselves without doing fan art, and sprinkle what you have from you. It's just about understanding what the industry wants and what is expected from you in the job. And spoiler alert, they don't want the sexy keyframe from ArtStation, at least for a concept art job. That's as simple as that. And so many people, again, tied to that stress and that hurry and that urgency to get a job to fix their identity crisis, they rush everything and they go for the low-hanging fruit and what seems to be the most obvious solution. And they are not working solutions. It's just
right.
what is exposed the most online and such, so they think it's the norm, but it's not. It's as simple as that.
Right. Yeah. The basic drawing. And that's what I look for too. And even like looking for people, if I'm gonna look for help, is how is those basic drawing skills and how can you use those even just to
Yeah.
communicate? Of course, painting on top nowadays and in 3D, that's also super good. But like the drawing usually starts off as the foundation of all of that.
Yeah.
And again, how can you articulate an idea? Is ultimately, but is there clarity there? Is it self-explanatory? 'Cause sometimes, right, we do work, we send it off. We're not at those meetings. We're not at all those meetings. It has to be super clear in its intent and what it needs to do. And it just takes a clean enough drawing and not like right, not a perfect drawing. That's one thing I have to steer a lot of students away from, that they'll never finish an assignment in like a class because they're always so fixated at like cleaning it up and making it perfect and revising it as they go. But it's like I call getting it client ready. Just get it clean enough that it represents the idea. Because you're going to blow way too much time trying to aim for this level of perfection that is immeasurable, and it's going to eat your whole week up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. So before keep on asking you questions, I like to
Yeah,
ask
there are
how
some
much
questions in the
time.
chat.
How
I
much
have
time do you have?
exactly 20 minutes, and then I'm running into my next call, which I got lined up all day on Friday. So yeah, my next 20 minutes is you guys, and
Yeah.
then I'll
Perhaps
have to wrap it up.
perhaps we can reserve like 10 minutes for you to prep up for the next meeting if you'd like.
Yeah, we got like 15 minutes or so, whatever you
Okay.
guys want to do.
All right. So there are some questions in the chat, and one of the one that popped up is someone want to ask you what your dream project and IP is.
That's probably like Final Fantasy. I would love to work on Final Fantasy. I have a video coming out in like 2 weeks on this. That's the reason I'm doing this. It's but Square, they're a Japanese-based company. I'm guessing they only work kind of from within sort of things. So I don't have like any hopes capacity for that. But I'd love that. That would be sweet.
Yeah, I think there are two ways to go through it. Either that you get the N1 Japanese certificate, right? That means that you can just that means that you can just travel to Japan, give them your portfolio, and get there and communicate with them directly in Japanese, right? The second way to
Yeah.
do it is that you are so spectacular, they will just hire an interpreter for you.
That's what I'm gonna work on. Just they'll pay for all that, and that are like a Zelda, right? Like I already kind of do Zelda art every
Yeah,
freaking
man.
day. I would love that, but again, I think Nintendo is really contained, right? They're really internal with how what their art team looks like. So I don't see that on the plate for me. So I'm just gonna keep making Zelda like art anyway, whether they want it or not. That can be their call.
Yeah, it seems like you really like producing those images.
Just for the job you want, right?
Yeah.
Nintendo ain't gonna hire me. I'm just gonna do it anyway. Because I get like that's the biggest request of any kind of client that knocks on my door is like, hey, can you give us something like Zelda? Sure, I'm gonna be the unofficial Zelda knockoff guy. Sign me up. I'm fine with that. I could sleep good at night with that.
You know, like you actually remind me of Power World. I think you might have heard of that game in which like
Yep.
they're just like Pokemon knockoff. Like I can imagine like a team of devs were so pissed that they couldn't get into Nintendo. They'd be like, we're gonna make our own
We're gonna make our own.
Pokemon move like game, right? Like with Gatling guns and all this
Yep.
this meme like presence.
Pokemon.
It's crazy because the concept artists from Parallel got rejected from over 100 companies.
Oh really?
Yeah. Most of the devs that never worked on a video game before. It's the backstory in the Parallel world. Putting aside the controversies about potential knockoffs, the origin story of the product and the dev, it's an anomaly in the space. It's such an anomaly. It's so funny to watch.
But at the end of the day, it's the audience that decided like, hey, this game is worthy of care, right? Like just go in there and experience it, and it turned out to yield great margins, right? Like it made like great profit. So who are we to say, right? Like perhaps we don't need like Nintendo, like just get out here. We just make our own game. How about that?
In the end, it's the public that decides what is valuable. And Palworld, if it got successful, because it fit a need in the space. Like Pokemon was getting quite stale for years.
Oh, it is.
And we said it last time, like, dear Pokemon company, you have been sitting on an incredible IP. Why is there no MMO? Why is there no FPS? Why is there no dating simulator in the IP of Pokemon? Because there's so much demand for that, and there's so many opportunities for that. And Palworld, they just sized that opportunity to make a shooter out of that.
That's another great parallel that's happening, right? Despite all the layoffs and the way that some of the parts of the industry is now, but it's like there's in 2023 and stuff, like there's been so many breakaway successes with like indie and smaller studio sized games. That just shows like for people that want it and they show up with the passion, you can build it and it will do well.
Yeah. Just picking Baldur's Gate as an example,
Yep, that's another
it's
one.
leading the way. Like they were so close to the community. They listened to the feedback. They delivered exactly what people wanted. They were super transparent and open. They built trust, and they managed to make a massive success, even financially, without having to do game as a service or all the arguably aggressive monetization that we see today. And a lot of games and companies that have been tanking, they have been following the game as a service model for years. And again, we discussed about that with James last time, but I also think that the crash happening right now, it's the game as a service crash. People are getting fed up about that.
Yep. It's all in a cycle. It'll ride itself out, and then budgets will reset. We're at the end of the fiscal year. I'm 100% certain at some point things will be on the rise again.
Yeah.
There was a previous crash back in 2018 for other models, like all the open world Witcher clones. Then it's the game as a service. Then there will be a next crash in 5 to 6 years for something else. The new meta of games. Let's see.
It's a lot of these younger people and the students are fear of it, but like I was saying, none of this is new. And it's always been there in some capacity. We're seeing all these massive. It's just a lot of things happening at once, and we see the negative headlines, of course. But like I know firsthand from all these layoffs, there are new studios being formed left and right now as we speak, and these are filled with passionate people, and they're going to get funding, and they're going to work on new projects, and they're going to staff up again.
Yeah. Okay. So perhaps we can have one more question in to wrap up the stream. So with this one, it's something that I think that been asked with plenty artists, but this time it's for you. Where do you see the art industry going in the next years?
That's a good question. If I knew and even had a slightest idea, maybe I'd be good at planning, which I've set up over the last several YouTube videos that I'm absolutely terrible at planning, but even predicting. But right, it can be terrifying. It can be complex. But especially too with the integration of AI, but realistically, we cannot stop the flow of the ocean, right? Pandora's out of the box. So there are going to be changes, and I think it's going to come down to the adaptability of this. We don't have the time, and nor we need to get into the how ethical a lot of that is. As artists, we know it, where we've all been, a lot of us been scraped, and there's a lot of moral gray use of that. But again, I don't think it's complex, and I'm at odds with a lot of where that field is going to go as well. But I do think it's going to be about we're going to see a rise of curators and people with a sense of style. Machines can make a lot of things, but it does not know what's good and what's not good. It's going to be humans with a sense of taste, with a vision, and with a sense of design that are really going to pave the way moving forward. We still, right, as people, we have to call what feels right, what represents a brand in a certain way, and what is delivering the right message. At the end of the day, right, all at least for now, AI it's making movies. I think as the headline was breaking yesterday or today, it was like it's okay. It's making movies. It's making things look pretty, but it can't do a lot of things that as humans, right? Functional design. It's really bad with aspects of design like rhythm and pattern and getting to some like the really high level aspects of design that an experienced designer can do, and it's terrible with narrative based things in many regards as well. So I think we're going to see a huge rise and need for like how as creators we can communicate, which is we've touched upon largely throughout this whole entire call. Like communication skills are going to be like a huge thing, whether we're delegating to a computer or to other people, or vying for like the next kind of big thing. Like communication is going to be such a huge part of the future, and I do think it's going to be like a question of um our intention, how we're going to still maintain a level of authenticity, and it's going to be largely because it's going to be things are going to become a question of like why, like I said, like what's our intention, why are we making something, and for who it is. And I don't think we should lose sight of that. So I think people with a deliberateness in their creativity, they're also going to see things go really really well for them. But I think entirely like either just complaining about it is for me, that's a waste of time. That's why I don't have like a single social post about it. I'm not going to go on there and bitch about AI, even though I have to deal with that on comments on everything. I'm not even going to waste my time answering it. I don't have time for it. I got my own creativity to work on, and I'm not going to let that slow me down. My art and my passion for creativity, stemmed long before that. It's just another tool, and I don't feel like it's necessarily like the tool we can always blame. Like I'm definitely, what I know there's people out there that disagree or not. Like guns don't kill people, people kill people. It's how we use the tool, how we use it. I use AI all the time in my business and other parts of my workflow. I have it like with ChatGPT, right? I have it help with scripts. I have it outline. I have it come up with title ideas. We used it, like I mentioned, to correct my eye contact from the script on the last video. And I fed in hundreds of my own images to the AI. I want to see how it produces to me. I use it kind of like as a secondary version of myself to bounce ideas off. It's nothing really ever that makes it, of course, into a public image. It's never something, because again, studios and bigger studios are making sure it's like pretty clearly outlined. Like we don't want AI used in this pipeline. But like for my personal stuff, I love kind of just bouncing my own imagery off of it to come up with like a few quick iterations. I even use it to kind of help art direct myself. I'm like, well, okay, what does my idea here look like, but like with like a warmer palette, or like if the sun is over here. So I'm constantly just using it as a feedback loop in my own work, even though like again, but I'm comfortable enough with my own moral compass that like I'm not making AI reference packs, and I'm not putting like final art out there and claiming it's mine, right? There's a lot of morally wrong justifications for that, and I'm 100% for that. But yeah, I think it's just ignoring it and complaining of it's not smart. It's a waste of time. And if we choose to do those, then we're almost like opting in to be more irrelevant, in the future. And that's the business side of me speaking. Of course, as an artist, I'm like, yeah, that's terrible. My shit scrapes, but realistic, I can't stop it, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. That's just how I feel, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to waste any time fussing over it.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Perhaps one more question, very quick one from Patsy. What things motivate you to the most to create your personal work other than Zelda and Final Fantasy?
Zelda. Xenoblade. I've got a Xenoblade, which is, if you don't know, it's a massive franchise on the Switch, but the creators I follow deeply, and they come back from the PlayStation 1 eras in the 90s. And I love those games, and it's mechs, it's monsters, epic fantasy worlds. I love it. So again, part of balancing everything is to make sure I do have a little bit of me time as a dad. My handheld devices are a great way that I can still get some gaming in. And of course I can do so much gaming with the kids, but we play the Kirby's, the Marios, occasional Donkey Kong, and that's great and all, but daddy's still got to have his game time. And often enough, if they're happy and content doing, watching their Thomas Tank Engine and playing, some of their Nintendo games, I'm always not going to be a part of there. Sometimes I am, but I love having the Switch, the PlayStation Portal, the Steam Deck. I don't work, where I play. That's why it's taken me so long to beat Baldur's Gate 3. I've had it since August. I've been plugging away at it, but because it's on my main computer, because I ordered from Larry in my PlayStation copy, and it hasn't come in yet. The physical copy, I want it as a collector's edition because I love supporting physical media. Something else that's kind of going away. But yeah, it's on my desktop where I work, and I can't help but sit like, oh, I'm gonna block out an hour a time for Baldur's Gate, and I end up like, oh, I should be working on this video edit or working on next week's script. So I'm always at odds, and that's why Baldur's Gate being the main exception for me playing any game on the desktop, I don't do it. I can't work, where I play, and that's why
That's
I
fair.
failed so hard during the pandemic with trying to work out at home. Like I'm one of those people, I can't work out at home because I either should be being a dad, I should be getting work done, and I also have literally a massive treasure trove of video games, in my office that like everything kind of would compete when I'm working out. So like I just have to commit to myself, set up a routine. Like I'm going first thing every single day, do the gym, get that done. And then I don't have to be at odds with myself about that. And it's prioritizing. Essentially, I know we didn't start on that question, but that's where it went. Sorry.
All good, all good. Well, Tim, do you have any other questions to ask before we wrap up?
That's fine for me. That's fine. I would know that about Baldur's Gate 3, but that's for another discussion, I guess.
Yeah, and this has been great, guys. Thank you for having me on this morning. Is for me.
Oh,
this
thank
is a great
you.
way to start my day.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. And well, folks, that's the end of episode 3 of the Artefact Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Yes, thank you.
Soon.
Bye, guys.